Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Saturday morning, March 19th. I'm happy to be here drinking some coffee, trying to wake up. This is one child abuse survivor to another. And we're on for 30 minutes live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I didn't put the chat room open because I don't know who will be listening this morning. This is an early show for me on a Saturday. And hopefully I'm streaming and you can hear me properly. I've had some problems with Blog Talk Radio lately, just the connection between Skype, I believe. So yeah, I just wanted to continue on talking about this article regarding boundaries and dysfunctional families and whatnot from George A. Boyd from the Mudrashram Institute of Spiritual Studies. So it's quite interesting. I found it very much, very helpful for me. I'm always looking into information, especially regarding dysfunctional families, codependency, boundaries, and things like this, because I didn't receive any good information on that when I was young, and it was not shown to me, proper boundaries and, how to not be codependent. So I'm always looking into this and for my own knowledge, so just to help myself out. So hopefully this will help other people as well. And I find this website really quite interesting, Mudrashram Institute of Spiritual Studies. That's www.mudrashram.com and the /dysfunctional family 2.html. And so that's what we're talking about this week. So I'm not a counselor or therapist. You have to listen to all of my shows at your own discretion, I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows. I'm a survivor of child abuse and a secondhand victim of domestic violence. And I spent my whole life in this mess, So until the age of 41, when I finally began my healing journey, so that was 4 years ago. And so I'm 4 years into my healing journey, which is quite a ways through, and feeling a whole lot better these days than I was 4 years ago. So it has helped me a lot to deal with this stuff, But, you have to listen at your own discretion, because I'm talking about abuse, and it's a sensitive subject. So you need to, think about what might bother you, and then, if you think the topics of abuse will bother you, then you have to turn the show off. It is clearly your discretion. You have to know what's good for you to listen to. It's ultimately your decision. So you have to know, think carefully what information, might trigger you or might make you feel, down or just might bother you. It is your discretion to turn it off, right? And young people under the age of 18, it is, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my shows. I don't know how young the people are who are listening to my shows, so I just ask that everybody under the age of 18 have someone listen to the show with you, any of my shows, just to make sure that it's age appropriately okay for you to listen to, because I don't know how young the people are out there who may be tuning into my shows. There's a lot of adult content on my shows, and I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a scary subject for a lot of people, especially if they haven't heard a whole lot about it and don't know a whole lot about adult survivor issues, people who have survived child abuse and what they might go through. And you have to listen at you have to get somebody to listen with you, just to make sure, that it's something that you should be listening to, right? I'd appreciate that. So we'll get right into this topic here this morning, and we're about a little bit better than halfway through the article here. George A. Boyd wrote this in 1992. It's a really good article. I like it. The next portion that we're going to look at is called Changing Negative Conditioning of the Past. And I'm just going to read through here, but it's quite interesting what he has to say. It says, though you may now be an adult, you carry with you the memories of the past. And the past has shaped you and molded you in ways you may not even be aware of, ways that remain deeply buried in your subconscious mind. The trauma of growing up in a dysfunctional family has left scars, wounds that still hurt, emotional pain and confusion that won't go away, crazy patterns of acting and relating that don't make sense, but you feel compelled to do them anyway. So this is what he's written here. And he says, to change the negative programming in the biocomputer that is your subconscious mind, you must correct the statements that are replaying like endless answering machine tapes. It's quite interesting what he says here, because that's exactly how I feel, with the stuff that plays around in my mind, just from the past, things that my mother said to me that stick with me. My dad's, stuff that my dad said to me really didn't sink in like the stuff that my mother said to me, and I don't know why. I think it's because I suffered more abuse from my mother than my dad, and my dad was still physically abusive towards me and psychologically, emotionally abusive towards me. But the abuse that my mother was putting on me was a lot more severe, and it was a lot more frequent. So and it was a lot more like harsh. She just took her whole frustration and anger out on me a lot of times. So, that's the stuff that she would say, the words and the verbal abuse that I took from her rolls around in my mind all the time. I can hear her voice quite often from years and years ago as a child, being, cussed out and told off, and hateful things, hurtful things that she would say to me still roll around in my mind. And it's because it was so incredibly damaging at the time. I think it just left a permanent mark on my memory, so that, it's just there. And because it was so disturbing, what she would say to me, things that were, to me as a child, so horrific, you know what I mean? So, the things my dad said, I never paid much attention to, and I still don't. He's still living. We don't talk or anything because I've cut him off, but I've completely shut down our relationship just because he's too toxic and I just can't deal with it anymore. And he's extremely old. He's almost 90 years old, and he just does. He's never going to change. He's psychologically ill. He's borderline schizophrenic as well as got all kinds of borderline personality problems. And to other people, he's great, but to his own family, he was just horrible. And he's really good to people that he meets, that he becomes friends with, and they just love him dearly. They think he's just the most wonderful man. And the rest of his family just knows the truth about him and his children, right? And my mom's been passed away for 16 years now, so I cut him off. I shut the relationship down because I just couldn't take any more of his toxic garbage. And so it was my choice, and I had to do it for my own peace of mind and for my own well-being, for my own state of well-being, right? So it's unfortunate, but things like that do happen, and it was a choice that I made just so that I can peacefully live the rest of my life, regardless of how long he lives. I don't need any more of his toxic BS, right? So his stuff just didn't bother me as much as like what my mom did. Was absolutely horrific. So what George A. Boyd says here is to change the negative programming in the biocomputer that is your subconscious mind. You must correct the statements that are replaying like endless answering machine tapes. These statements tell you that you are not good enough, that you can't succeed, that you are just another drunk like your father, for instance. This is what he's talking about. And you are painfully aware that, like him, you do have a problem with alcohol. This is just if somebody was in this situation. Statements that you have come to believe and act upon. If you want your behavior to change and to alter the negative consequences that your behavior has brought to you, you can begin to change this negative programming. He says here, the overt functioning of the conscious mind includes behavior and sensation, and the functioning of the conscious mind, of which you may become readily aware, comprises 8 levels. So this is quite interesting because I don't know a whole lot about this stuff, so I find this very interesting. The 8 levels are, number 1, gross motor behavior, such as turning your body or moving your arms and legs. Number 2, fine motor behavior is when you move your fingers or perform coordinated movements like dancing or playing hockey. Number 3, orientation towards stimuli like when you move your ears, eyes, nose, tongue, or touch a temperature receptors on your skin to become aware of some object in the environment or something on or next to your body. Number 4, movement of internal organs, and as in this case of when you become aware of your heart racing after a chase or butterflies in your stomach, you feel anxiety. Number 5, speech, when you vocalize your thoughts and feelings and communicate to other people. And 6, voluntary control of breath is when you hold your breath when diving underwater or taking deep breaths when you are feeling angry or upset. Number 7, self-direction, the inaudible speech you use to tell yourself the next thing to do, as in sit down, reach down, grab your shoelaces with both hands, tie your shoe. That's quite interesting. Number 8, self-monitoring, the I am statements, which you use to describe what you are doing. For example, I am now eating ice cream. So those are the 8 conscious, I guess, stimuli, I guess, what he's talking about there. It's what the conscious mind, sort of knows, because we're moving around. We have to communicate, and we have to tell our mind to do things. Our mind needs to grab a glass because we want to take a drink or whatever. It's really quite interesting when you think about this stuff. We do this all by, not thinking too much about it. It's just natural, right? So it's these behaviors and sensations, the functioning of the conscious mind. It's really quite interesting. Then he says, excuse me. He goes on to talk about your functional subconscious mind. Also has 8 levels, and it is comprised of your basic conditioning that determines what you think, feel, and believe. So number 1, fear or aversive conditioning, which includes your feelings of wanting to escape, thoughts that a situation or a person is dangerous, or beliefs that you might be harmed if you hang around any longer. And number 2, sexual or attractive conditioning that elicits your feelings and sensations of sexual arousal and your fantasies about sexual behavior, your beliefs about your sexual attractiveness, worthiness, and competence. And number 3, anger or aggressive conditioning evokes your feelings of being wronged, your fantasies of harming another or taking revenge, or beliefs that you are justified in hurting another person, acting out violence, or causing injury, pain, or misery. And number 4, moral or inhibitory conditioning that bring up feelings of guilt or unworthiness, fantasies of being punished by another person or by a supernatural agency like God or the devil, and the beliefs that define you for what is good or evil. That's interesting. Number 5, learning or experiential conditioning produces feelings of confidence or certainty, gives rise to associative thinking and memories from your past and your beliefs that identify an event, person, or thing as being similar or dissimilar to what you have experienced before. Number 6, habit or habit or motor conditioning prompts feelings of ease and confidence in making a movement you've previously practiced repeatedly. Thoughts about the effectiveness of your actions and beliefs about what is possible and impossible for you to do and achieve by your actions. So these are habit or motor conditioning prompts. That's weird, huh? Number 7, desire or attachment conditioning, which motivates feelings of craving or need, fantasies of doing, being, having, and enjoying the object of desire, and beliefs about what is possible for you to do, to be, and to have in your life. Number 8, subliminal awareness, marked by your I am or identity statements about your thoughts and fantasies, feelings, and beliefs, and your perception of your desires, habits, and conditioning. Excuse me, my voice is just terrible this morning, but I'm just waking up. I've had an incredibly busy week. I really haven't had time to do anything, hardly, except for breathe, and that's about it. Getting a little bit tired here. So this is quite interesting. So there's these 8 categories for the conscious and subconscious part of ourselves, right? The simplest kind of self-programming is called affirmation. And affirmation is having the self-direction portion of your conscious mind give you suggestions to your subconscious mind. You may suggest to your subconscious mind, for example, so this is our conscious mind telling our subconscious mind different things. For instance, they list them. George A. Boyd lists them off here. He says, there is nothing to fear when you stand up in front of an audience to give a talk. There's another one. You are beautiful and desirable and attractive to the opposite sex. This is something our conscious mind might tell our subconscious. You can control your anger. You will act in accordance with your morals. Here's another one. You will remember the information you just learned, so you will do well on the upcoming test. You will shoot baskets easily when you aim the basketball. You can achieve what you set out to do in your life. So this is something we tell our subconscious. And another kind of self-programming is called processing. In this method, you have the self-direction portion of your mind ask your subconscious mind a series of questions. And you may ask, for example, what makes you afraid of heights? What is it that makes you attracted to men or women who abuse you? What is it that makes you so angry about that? Why do you feel this behavior is wrong? These are questions that we might, our subconscious mind might be asking, right, to process stuff, right? Why do you feel this behavior is wrong? What was it like when you were 5 growing up? What is keeping you from running the 100-yard dash just a little bit faster? What is it you really want in your career? Surprisingly enough, your subconscious likely has an answer to whatever you may ask it. It will give you direct answers and will often reveal the hidden truth about whatever is troubling you. All you have to do is ask and then listen for the answer. It says you may wish to write it down as well so you can refer to it later. That's quite interesting, I think. Affirmation and processing will allow you to get in touch with your basic feelings, thoughts, and beliefs and to change them to a certain degree. For the stubborn, recalcitrant, and deeply ingrained patterns and attitudes, however, affirmation and processing may not necessarily work. It says for these, you need to bring out the heavy guns of metaprogramming. And see, this is stuff that I really don't know anything about, right? It's just kind of interesting. Metaprogramming means directing or changing your behavior and conditioning from an even deeper portion of you called the metaconscious mind. Metaconscious mind brings the following functions to bear on your basic conditioning. So it says resolution, getting mad at, fed up with, and tired of old behavior or habit patterns, and deciding emotionally to do something about it. And I think a lot of us, have resolutions and finally decide to do things, you know what I mean? That's what happened to me 4 years ago when I decided to allow myself to heal because I was so tired of being in the same old rut of, not I wouldn't say a clinical depression, it was more like just a state of grief and sorrow for what had happened to my family and what, thinking about my brothers mainly because, a lot of my brothers, 3 of my brothers are dead, 2 from suicide really and 1 from murder, who he was killed. So, thinking about things like this, thinking about the relationship between me and my mother, which, was so horrible. It shouldn't have been. We actually had a few good years in between after I was about the age of, I'd say, 21 or so, especially around 19 or not even 19. It started to get better when I was about 18, 19. And then it got a little bit better as time went on until the age 28, 29 when my mom's toxicity got to be ridiculous and she started to be extremely abusive again, even though she couldn't physically abuse me anymore. She was on her deathbed practically, but her toxic mouth just kept spewing and spewing and spewing, and she sent me into a situation where I thought, oh my God, I had to put up with the abuse from this woman to physical abuse as well as all the other types of abuse, except for my mother did not sexually abuse me, which was good for her. She did abuse me in every other way. For until I was like 18 years old. Pretty much 17 was the last time she physically abused me. And then, after you get to be 18, 19 years old, I mean, I could have moved out, right? But my mom kept me around because she wanted me to protect her from my dad, right? So she started to develop this relationship with me that I had never had with her before, which was that she was going to try to be nice to me just so that I would stay in the home so that I could keep my dad away from her because my dad was always attempting to rape her because she would not have sex with him, and she couldn't stand him touching her. He had raped her repeatedly, and one time in front of me. So my older siblings would try to protect my mother too, and she would never get out of this marriage. And we kept telling her to get out of the marriage, for her sake and for the kids' sake and for everyone's sake, but she would never do it. And so then by the time I was the last child at home, so there was nobody else around. And so my mother kind of figured she better play her cards right and started trying to treat me decently. She still had, she was still not all that great, but at least we were able to function. She would try to control her abusiveness towards me just because she wanted me to stay in the home to protect her. And really, at the time, I thought that I didn't mind because I was always trying to protect my mother anyway from my dad, including taking a bat to his head and for pushing him out of her room. And when I was a little kid, I mean, I'd catch beatings because I would attack him because he was attacking her, and I'd just be like, you get away from my mother, and then of course I'd be beaten on. And did that stop the abuse from my mother? No, my mother didn't care. She was still going to abuse me no matter what, right? So it didn't really get me anywhere in that department. But the thing is like, here's somebody who abused me for my whole life and then set up this false relationship with me that really didn't exist. And she, at the age of 28, dropped a bomb and told me that she never did want me. And I knew this already anyway, but she just reinforced it by telling me again. And that we were worthless to her, we didn't mean anything to her, and that, I told her, why didn't you just let us go when the courts intervened and the social workers got involved, I was like, how dare you say that to me now, Like, you could have let us go when the courts were going to remove us from the home. Instead of that, you kept us in this home because you cried the blues with the judge. No, don't take my children away. And then you systematically abused us the rest of our lives until most of them moved out or died or whatever, my siblings, and then kept me around to use me for what, just to use me. Yeah, that was a harsh wake-up call for me, that my mother had kept me around and had used me. So not only had she abused me all the way up until I was 17 years old in every way, then she used me until I was 28 years old. 28 years old, almost 30 years old. My mind, I couldn't even tell you at that point what my mind was thinking and what was going on inside my heart and my thinking processes. I was like, oh my God, I've wasted half of my life or a good portion of it on a woman who was never going to ever say the right things to me, that she loved me, that she wanted me, that she needed me, you know what I mean? And so I moved to Canada. I was like, I'm gone. And I said goodbye to her and my family, and I split. And, you know, how dare somebody do that to their child? You know, that's just, it literally ripped me to pieces. And within a couple of years, my mother had passed away. She was very sick. And when I left and moved up here, I knew that she only had a few years left, if that, because her health was so bad. And she was 68 years old. You know, my mother had me when she was 38. So, you know, I thought, okay, she's only got a couple of years left, and I can't take any more of her abuse. I just can't take it. So I moved to Canada. Within a year and a half, she was dead, and I went down to see her just before she passed away. I got to see her for an hour actually, and then she went into a coma, and as I made it just in time to see her for an hour, and she slipped into a coma, and she was gone shortly after that. So I moved back to Canada. I didn't want to stay down there, and I was already living in Alberta here, where I'm living right now, and I just didn't want to stay down there. And there's nothing down there for me but painful memories, town where I was born. So I just can't deal with going back there. But, you know, I was sitting in my apartment shortly after my mother died, about 3 months later, and I realized that I was going to have to do so much work. And my inner child was just screaming, and I wanted to rage, and I not only wanted to kill myself, but I wanted to go into a rage and just go into a field so I wouldn't hurt anybody else and just scream until I died. Just let this rage and scream until I died, fall into a heap on the ground and just die. That's how I felt. I mean, I was destroyed by my mother. She destroyed me in every way. And, you know, it took me a long, long time because I was only able to function as an adult by working through things very slowly and piece by piece. And it took me another 11 years to start my healing journey. So that just tells you the damage that is done from this kind of stuff. You know, I wish that I would have reached out actually a long time ago. I really wish I would have got some help like years and years ago. Because I can't believe that, you know, that I didn't see that there was help out there, or that, you know, I could get help, right? But until 4 years ago. So, you know, if you're suffering in this stuff, you make sure you get some help, because I'm telling you, we certainly did not deserve that. You know, a child does. And there's so many of us out here who have had to suffer through this kind of garbage. And it wasn't our fault. We had nothing to do with it. And it was just what other people chose to do to us, and it was a choice they made. And it was a bad choice. But, of course, we can't go back and change that or make those choices for them to rechange it. So we have to now get a hold of what's going on in our lives now and change the way we feel about ourselves. And that's the resolution I made 4 years ago. So it's getting fed up with and tired of old behavior or habit patterns and deciding emotionally to do something about it. So I was sitting on the couch 4 years ago ready to self-injure, wanting to kill myself. The same old thing, you know, after work. I go to work, smile, have fun all day, come home and want to kill myself. That's how my life was all the time. That's how I lived my life. I used to go to school when I was a small child, come home, get beat on, sit in my room and hate my parents. You know, and then listen to them fight, listen to my dad raping my mother, get up in the morning, do it all again, come home, get beat on, slapped around, spit on. You know, like this is my life growing up as a child, and you know, it was just chaos and garbage and abusive. You know, it was horrible, and I carried that on into my adult life. I was able to function during the daytime at work, no problem. I could hold jobs down, no problem. But then I get home, sitting around on the couch by myself, and that's when the real Lori comes out. You know what I mean? And the real Lori has to deal with all this stuff from her past. So it's like, you know, I was sitting there 4 years ago wanting to self-injure and thinking about planning my suicide, wondering why and how I was ever going to get out of this pain, and why I couldn't get out of this pain, and being abused as a child and all this misery they put me in. And then I sat there and thought about it, and I thought, no, if I do that, I allow them to win, because who's going to care if I kill myself anyway? Nobody. Who's going to care if I self-injure? Nobody. You know, I really had to think it through, and I thought, why do I keep wanting to do this? You know, like it's, you know, nobody's going to care. So basically I was sitting there thinking, well, that's true, and if I do that, then I let my parents win this fight, because two of my brothers killed themselves. One of my sisters tried to kill herself. She was suicidal. She had a gun. We were always pretty scared that she would blow her husband away and herself, right? Suicide, murder, suicide. And, she was pretty unstable. And so I was thinking, oh my God, I can't let my parents win this fight. They already won. Well, they won really with my other siblings because my siblings did not stick it out. They did not allow themselves to have a good life. And so by killing themselves and doing themselves in, they allowed my abusive, horrific, evil parents to win this fight, And I thought, man, I am not doing that. I really don't care. I thought, no, I'm going to get help. I'm going to learn how to deal with this. I'm going to really learn how to love myself and not hate myself. And I'm going to learn how to be good to myself. It's been a hard job, let me tell you. And I'm going to learn how to treat myself right, you know what I mean? Because I was always able to treat other people right, especially since my late 20s or mid-20s. And, I thought, no, why am I going to let my parents win this fight? I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to have a good life, and shame on them for trying to kill me and trying to destroy me, and along with the rest of my siblings, which is what they did, intentionally and on purpose, really, tried to destroy us, right? And so, I sat there and I thought, yeah, because I can remember back to the days when I used to wish for death, I wish that my mom would kill me. I'd be like, just go ahead and kill me. I'd just tell her. I'd be like, go ahead and kill me. I don't care, because she would be threatening to kill me all the time. Kill you, you bitch, this type of stuff, right? She was so screaming and throwing things at me and kicking me around, just grabbing me and slapping me. That was one of her big things she just loved to do, grab me by the arm and slap me around. And, calling me names and horror and throwing me down on the ground, kicking me around, right? Highly abusive, highly violent woman. And so, this stuff replays in my mind, and I'm thinking, I don't have to allow that to destroy me, My mother tried to destroy me. She did a very good job of working on that my whole life until she died. And so if I want to win this fight, I'm going to have to learn how to love myself and learn how to deal with this stuff and get help when I need it and get help where I need it. You know what I mean? And so in doing this, I win this fight. And that's a really good feeling, because it means that they couldn't kill me. By me not killing myself and me not destroying my own life, it means that my parents, my abusers, could not kill me. They could not destroy me. So that's awesome. And, I wish that for everybody. I really do. That all of us who have been abused out here could, come to that reality and that awakening of that we do deserve to have a good life, and we do need to get help sometimes, And that what was done to us was not our fault, and that we should not have to pay the price for it. But ultimately, we can't change the past. That's just ridiculous for people to think that we could change this stuff. So, but we can change today. And we can change how we feel about ourselves, like right now. You know what I mean? And we can make that decision, that resolution. We're not going to do those old behaviors that are hurting us or hurting other people. And that we're not going to, to allow this stuff to kill us, to continue to destroy our lives, right? The abuse that we've suffered. Because this is what so many adult survivors go through. And so, that was my resolution 4 years ago. So I've been doing great, because I no longer want to self-injure. I no longer want to end my life. 4 years ago, I made a resolution. I made a commitment. It was a commitment to myself, right? Because nobody else in my family cares. My God, who would care? I got 3 or 4 people left in my family, and they're all just so codependent and dysfunctional still, because they're not going to heal. They're not on their healing journey, and they don't care, right? They think abuse is fine. See, they're screwed up in the head, right? So, I'm on my healing journey, and I'm like, man, this is so good. And I was in hell, so I know what this is like. I know what it's like to be on the other side of that, right? But I'm also extremely happy that I made the decision to step over the line onto the other side and look to hope and look for the future and look to a good life, instead of that misery and that hell that I was in, right? So make sure that you do reach out and get some help. We have about a minute left here. I'll be back on my other shows. You can check my show page. I did have to change some times around, and I'll be back on Dreamcatchers Talk Radio all next week, Monday through Friday, here on Blog Talk Radio at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll be on my own shows Tuesdays and Thursdays next week. So, and then we'll be back to normal in April. I should be all right because I had to take a break. I've just been extremely busy, and I had to take a break because I was really tired. So I had to just move my shows to Tuesdays and Thursdays and the weekends just for now. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you get some help if you're suffering through this stuff. If you don't find somebody who can help you, in your friends or your circle, then you call a crisis line, right? You do something, but you stick around and you do not allow your abuser to win this fight. No way. You stay alive and you have a good life, and you learn how to love yourself and take care of yourself and do the right things by yourself and get some help, right? So we'll talk to you real soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.